Welcome to the Arsenal show. We are live and it is the Arsenal season review. Yes, it's that time again. It's the end of the season. There are no more games for Arsenal. There are no more points we can gather, but also no more disappointment at the end of the weekend. I'm joined by Steve K. How you doing, Steve?
Yeah, how you doing, Kieran? I'm good, mate. Time to relax. Time to be do a season, get the report out, get the A pluses, B minuses, and C minuses. Maybe quite a few D minuses as well. But yeah, looking forward to it.
All right, let's see what you got. And of course, we're joined by Jerome Marks. How you doing, Jerome?
Yeah, all good, thanks. Not as stressed now that the season's finished. So yeah,
Relax.
feeling good and relaxed. Yeah,
Exactly. All right, let's get to it. Plenty to discuss. It's going to be like a Michael Aspel's "This Is Your Life" coming out here now. The transfer window closed in August. Arsenal brought in the likes of Ben White, Aaron Ramsdale, Sambi Lokonga, Martin Odegaard, who had been there the season before, Tavares and Tomiyasu. A few names in there that nobody had really heard of. No one knew what to expect to come out of this window. There was some of the fans' reaction from Aaron Ramsdale signing from two relegated teams season back to back, telling him that we didn't want him at our club. He's rubbish, and people were adamant he was no good. But what was your thoughts at the end of the transfer window before the season had started? We'll start with you, Steve. They brought in Ben White for 50 million, Ramsdale from Sheffield United, Lokonga, a very unknown talent, Martin Odegaard, who had been there a season before, but some say off the back of being linked to James Maddison that Martin Odegaard may have been the wrong signing. Tavares, a very unknown player, and only really had outings in the Benfica reserve team, and then obviously Tomiyasu, a Japanese international, on the last day of the window.
Yeah, I was quite pleased because I felt that we got players in the positions that we needed. Our defence was, an absolute nightmare, and we needed it fixing badly, and no matter who we bought, it probably would have improved it. So I was over the moon when Ben White came in. I thought Ramsdale got very unfair stick from Arsenal fans, but I was quite happy with him. At first I thought, well, maybe we could have, bought someone in another area because I felt maybe we could have got away with that position. But I went with Ramsdale, and he got proved right. It wasn't too long after he was in goal for a few games that we see the quality of what he is, and very quickly he turned most of the Arsenal fans around. But I was very pleased. You look at Odegaard. I mean, there's 80%, 85% of Arsenal fans, like you've already said there, they wanted James Maddison to come in. Well, I don't know what them 85% of Arsenal fans are thinking now, because he's turned into an absolute star for Arsenal. But I was really pleased. We had Tomiyasu come in. We was all a little bit unsure of him, but we got our friend Nima on the show to give us a little rundown of what he was all about, and he told us that we had bought a class right back there who was very versatile. He could play in as a right centre back as well, and he's proved him right. And he's a player who I think is going to get even better and better next season. It's very difficult to comment on what I felt about Lokonga and Tavares at the time because I don't think anybody knew what they are. We look now at where at the end of the season, I think both of them, still need to develop, and at the moment they're squad players, but I'm quite happy about that because I've seen quality in them as well. So at the beginning, I was quite happy because I felt we bought the right players in the right positions, as I said, I was more than happy, and we got our star as well in Martin Odegaard, which I think at least us three knew what we'd got. So pleased with our work that we did, and also one thing just as well, what Arsenal fans have also got to realise, the amount of work that he did on getting players out, before that transfer window, that has to be sort of tied into the players that are coming in as well. It's very, very difficult. He done a fantastic job there as well. So overall, ins, outs, very pleased.
And Jerome, what was your thoughts after that transfer window? Before the first game of the season, Arsenal actually got their business done with Ben White while very early on in the transfer window. The majority of them were done, and then a few late additions at the end. What was your thoughts at the time then?
If I'm honest, how I think I remember myself feeling about it is that I was quite open-minded, and the main reason for that is because apart from Odegaard, who we had on loan at the half of last season, I hadn't really seen too much of the other players. I mean, none of us had seen Tomiyasu play, so open-minded, wonder what he's going to be like. Tavares, another one. He hadn't hardly played any sort of first team minutes really at his former club, and I didn't think that he'd play instead of Tierney unless Tierney was injured. Ben White, seen bits and bobs of, not too much, but heard good things, read good things about him. And again, the goalie, hadn't seen too much of Ramsdale, so I was really sort of interested to see how they would all gel together, the ones that would go straight into the first team. What I was a bit, I don't know if disappointed is the word, but I felt we needed to really strengthen the centre of midfield. I felt that Partey and Xhaka needed some really top draw player to help complement our midfield. And I know we signed Lokonga, but he obviously came in sort of with an eye to the future. And I think we could have bolstered the centre midfield a bit more. So as we've said a lot, it's such an important area of the pitch and affects so much of the game that I think we probably missed the trick not signing a more established or more high quality central midfielder. All the other positions I was comfortable with, but that sort of stood out to me as maybe an area we should have strengthened a bit more, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because at the time there was no worries about the likes of we still had Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, we still had a Lacazette, although we some have issues with his output with regards to the numbers that he's putting on the charts. But we still had a solid team there, and apart from, as you said, maybe a central midfielder as an addition, people may have thought that Arsenal are definitely shaping up to be a half decent team this season. However, after the first 3 games of the season, where we shipped in 9 goals in 3 games, and the first game of the season after a 2-0 loss to Brentford, there must have been alarm bells ringing. Although a COVID and injury ravaged squad, there must have been a little bit of a worry that we could be seeing the season before all over again, where we've got, after the first 15 games, I think we put on 6 points on the board. There must have been was there a slight worry for you at any point there, Steve, after the first 3 games?
No. Reason being because it's firstly who we played.
Yeah.
The first reason because of it was the first game of the season. We played Brentford at home. They was like it was a very hostile atmosphere. Like you've already said there, we was COVID hit in that first game. We had injuries, and then we had to go. Then we had to come up against two of the best sides in the Premiership. So maybe we would have expected to lose those first 2 games against those 2 teams anyway. So no, I wasn't worried up to then. I mean, even if we would have beat Brentford, if we got the draw at the first game of the season, we probably would have been happy. So I didn't expect much in the first 3 games, and when we'd come out at the end of them, I didn't think we would be staying down there for very long. And once we got our team back, once we got team back from injuries, and then we started to improve.
Mm-hmm. Any worries for you at that point, Jerome? Some of the fans were getting their gasoline ready. lighting up the pitchforks, getting the markers out.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, like Steve said, that to get Man City and Chelsea in two of the first three
Champions
games,
League winners and the machine that is Man City.
That's proper unlucky. How that panned out. I guess we did have. If you look at the teams that played that day, I definitely remember Pablo Mari playing against Chelsea at home, and obviously that was one of Lukaku's first games back. And when he first came back, they bought him for whether it was close to 100 million euros. Like we were just scared of him, weren't we? You could just sense it. Obviously, Lukaku hasn't had the season that maybe we thought at the beginning, but at that time we were just frightened of him. And yeah, we had loads of players out. Didn't have a full strength team. Maybe all the performances obviously weren't great. We had a man sent off, I think, the first half against Man City. So it was one of those where just sort of everything was going wrong against us. And yeah, look, you can quickly sort of spiral downhill. You know, confidence, trying to gel new players into a team. The signs weren't good. Fans getting on the backs of the players and the manager could have happened a lot more, like, intensely, perhaps. So yeah, I was a bit worried, but you knew that the players or the first choice players would be coming back soon, and obviously the fixtures would ease up a bit in terms of the teams we were playing against.
Yeah,
and hopefully we could go on a bit of a run and collect some points.
Yeah, and that we did. Xhaka out suspended after the Man City game, which left us with Partey and Lokonga in the central midfield, but two hard victories against eventually relegated teams, Norwich and Burnley, 2 1-0 victories, which is crazy looking back at it. Put the first 6 points on the board. What followed then was a massive 3-1 victory against Spurs. How important was that victory at that point in the season against Tottenham? Aubameyang celebrating in front of Henry with that iconic celebration that Henry done. Smith Rowe coming in, sort of emerging again this season as a star player. How big was that game for Arsenal this season, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was very well needed. That's for certain. I think what it did, there was question marks over Arsenal. Not from me, and probably not from us, because we know the start we had. And so when we went into the Spurs game, it was important that we, played well, that we got a win, and we did. And we did it with style. And, after that, it just took us on to what was a nice little run. It was like 9 points after that. And big games like that. I think that a lot of our kids come of age in that game. And then they never look back for the whole season. Games like that, where you can build confidence, that early, to get a big win that early, and especially when your confidence been knocked, against teams like Chelsea, Manchester United, you've struggled against Burnley and Norwich, to go and get that big win against your big rivals, your main rivals, was, if anything, if it was hard having the Man City and the Chelsea games when they were, like Jerome's already said there, it was a bit harsh, we was a bit unlucky. It was a godsend that we had that Tottenham game when it was and where it was, and that we went and won it. Because if we was to gone and then had maybe an Aston Villa away or something like that and lost that, then you don't know how the rest of the next 4 or 5 games would have turned out. But that was the importance of that. They went there, they played well, they played Tottenham off the park, and it wiped away the memories of which was a pretty poor start by Arsenal standards.
Yeah, definitely. Jerome, how important was that game? A massive game. As an Arsenal fan, those are the ones that we all want to win. You don't North London derby at home as well. Thierry Henry there. I think there was pressure on from the board as well, because I think that was the game where Daniel Ek was there as well with Thierry Henry.
Oh yeah. Of course, yeah. It's that you can't. To get the fans on side, there's nothing better than beating Spurs. And I think we came out the blocks very quick. I think what that showed as well with sort of Tomiyasu, he was obviously up against Son really on his side, and when you have a game like that against Son, one of the most dangerous players in that position, you think, well, if he can handle Son, then he can handle anyone. So I think that probably gave Tomiyasu a lot of confidence, and not only gave Tomiyasu confidence, but I think it gave the supporters confidence in Tomiyasu. Like he's sort of arrived now, and that's our first choice right back, and we're happy with him. We're on his side. We'll get behind him. Saka and Smith Rowe both scored in that game, and there was just a real sort of seemed like there was a real sort of feel good vibe around the stadium that day, which obviously there would be beating Spurs like that. But I think that sort of maybe set the bar in terms of performances starting quickly, because they couldn't live with Arsenal Spurs in that, especially in that first half. And a really great win, probably one of the highlights of the season, to be fair.
Do you think that game was one of the key factors in the sort of the start of the fans sort of bonding together again?
Yeah, possibly. Like I said, it doesn't hurt. Like that is a quick win to get fans on side is to beat Spurs, and the atmosphere is always going to be good in those types of games. But when you play like that and you get a result like that, then it's even better. So yeah, that could have been the start, perhaps, of the maybe the new bond between the players and the fans.
Yeah, and also the players amongst each other as well, because that was one of the first games where we saw some devastating partnerships in midfield with Xhaka and Partey, and Partey link up play with Odegaard, and Odegaard's then link up play with Saka, and then the Highland boys linking up together. But that was very, very, very short lived, because that was the game when Granit Xhaka got a really bad injury, and we were down to having another change in midfield with Partey and Lokonga again. But however, that was when Arsenal went on their 10-game unbeaten run, beating the likes of Leicester, Aston Villa along the way, teams that many had put above Arsenal at the start of the season. Once again, on the outside to people, it may not have sounded like these games against Leicester and Aston Villa were big wins. But for us as fans, when you're hearing that these are the teams that could potentially take over you at the start of the season, especially when Aston Villa are trying to buy the likes of Elmwood Smith Rowe and you're getting taunted by their fans, it's good to put one over them and sort of, once again, stake a claim in the league, because those are games we were potentially losing last season and the season before. Was again a great set of victories there, Steve, and it put sort of more confidence in Arsenal as well.
Yeah, and I think the main reason that is, I mean, you could add like Wolves to that as well. You know, as we came into later to the season, Wolves, the Leicesters, the Aston Villa. These are banana skins, aren't they? I mean, maybe not be for the top three. Well, Chelsea, you could say they're banana skins for them as well, but maybe not to Man City and Liverpool. But to most teams, these are banana skins, and you know, we look back in the past, and they've certainly been them type of games for Arsenal. So whenever we come up against them, you always got that little bit of trepidation on how we're going to perform. And most of the time, you think if we come out of it with a point, you know, we would be happy. But as I said, we went on to the Spurs game, and we just sort of carried on the trait and the confidence that we took into these games. Yeah, I think we got I think it was so important, the confidence we got into that Spurs game. It took us into the Leicester games. It took us into these Aston Villa games, and the confidence just grew and grew and grew. And these young players were all of a sudden, you know, winning games against teams that in the past Arsenal would get beat by. We would get beat by Leicester. We would get beat by Aston Villas. We would get beat by Wolveses. You know, but you know, they went there and they not wiped the floor off them, but you know, they went there with no fear, and they went there and won the game. I thought they won it with ease, and I think it was the start of what was. We started to feel a little bit that what could now this season bring? You know, we've just beat Spurs, Villa. Leicester, it's all of a sudden, you're looking at these players, how they was performing in them games, the confidence that they was getting, the way that especially Smith Rowe and Xhaka were playing at the time, the way the party and the Xhaka midfield was blending together. They was thinking, all of a sudden you think, well, maybe this maybe we can expect a little bit more from them. And that's what's important with these games. It breeds confidence. It breeds confidence if you win those type of games. And it did. And it's what happened. And yeah, and we went on from there as well. Carried going on.
Yeah, we did. But one of the biggest impacts in the team during that time, during those wins, was Aaron Ramsdale, Jerome. I think in that time, out of those 10 games, I think he won man of the match in 3 or 4 of those games. One of the standout games being in that Leicester game, an absolutely world-class save against James Maddison's free kick. How good was Ramsdale there? And surely that was at the point where people who had doubted him, surely they put that to the side.
Everything he tried during that period, Ramsdale, came off pretty much. All that he was clipping balls into midfield. Like you said, the save for the free kick was outstanding. He made a few of those sort of one-off saves in games. And I think probably shouts from the Arsenal fans to be England's number one. But yeah, he just silenced all of his critics, Ramsdale, in that period. And you probably wouldn't have been able to find an Arsenal fan that wasn't happy with him. Based on that period of time, he was excellent, and there wasn't even a debate in terms of should Leno go back in goal. It was no, Ramsdale's our number one, and the thought of Leno was probably at the back of people's minds. They probably sort of forgot even that he was at the club. The way that he came in and he sort of hit the ground running, and I don't know if he managed to win like Player of the Month awards from Arsenal.com, perhaps even. I can't really remember, to be honest, but I'm sure he was probably up there. And yeah, he set the bar very high, and maybe towards the end of the season, maybe didn't reach those heights that he set himself in those first few months, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely, and I agree. Everything he done turned to gold, and even the things where later on in the season they might have gone to one of their players, because he loves that low drilled ball straight down the centre, doesn't he? To the centre midfield. It's a great ball when it comes off, and like 8 out of 10 times it does, but 2 out of them 10 times it doesn't. You've got the defenders just have to react, and they know they're going to have to react. And that's part of the way we play, and the part of the way we have to play to take those risks. Because when we do that, 9 times out of 10, we get something from it. We get a break, we get a chance on goal, we get down the wing, we get in there, we make yards in their half, and that's the important thing. That's the risk you're going to take when you've got that sort of goalkeeper. But yeah, early on in the season, they were maybe going to the other player, but then ricocheting off his foot and then going to our man. Later on in the season, they might have been going to the player and then getting the shot off. But it's just part and parcel of his game. I'm not knocking it. I think he's been brilliant. And yeah, overall, I think he's had an excellent season, but we'll get on to that in a bit. A big 4-0 loss to Liverpool was potentially hit home in amongst the team more than people first thought. It was slightly covered by a 2-0 victory against a very, very poor Steve Bruce team, because this was the one of his last games. A very, very poor Steve Bruce Newcastle, where Martinelli came on to score for one of his first touches of the game with an excellent half volley. But then Arsenal went on to lose to Manchester United and Everton, where again the gasoline came out, the markers, the pens, the banners. It shows how fragile some of this Arsenal fan base is. But it was more frustrating maybe because they were against 2 teams who have been awful this season, 2 games in which we probably could have, even though he wasn't great, could have come out of it with something on the board, Steve.
Yeah, we could have, but look, the Man United game. I think at the time, I think although Man United weren't playing as well as what Man United, can do, at the time. I mean, they certainly wasn't as bad then as they are now. So, and it's Arsenal, Man United at the end of the day. It's very similar to an Arsenal Spurs. To me, it's like a derby. I'm always, filled with, a little bit of fear when we go to Old Trafford. So, having a loss again, I don't think it was such a bad thing. It was a shame due to the fact that we was having such a good run and the wheels come off a little bit. But like I've said through the season, when you've got young players, there will be times during the season where you will get that 2 or 3 game drop. And that was one of the points in the season where we got that. I mean, the game against Liverpool. I mean, I don't think we played that bad against Liverpool. I know it was 4-0, but I think for the quite long periods of that game, until Liverpool scored, I thought we really played well. But some 4-0 sounds like a bit of a thrashing, but it wasn't. But it was disappointing. But the important thing was that they recovered, and and then they come back and they did well. To sort of, you always looking at when that Man United game happened, you do have the disappointment, but the first thing you looked at what's the reaction? Will we get a reaction like we did earlier in the season when we was having, and we did, and then we went on again, and I think that's important going forward.
Right. Jerome, big losses against Man United, Evan. Frustrating at the time. I'd probably say more so the Everton game, because although Man United, and Steve's right, it's Man United, and it was away from home, Everton, they were bad on the day. We took a 1-0 lead and let them get back into it, which was, I think, the most frustrating thing. I think Damari Gray scored the winner. Yeah,
amazing goal, actually, Damari Gray's goal. But I think that was probably one of Aubameyang's last games for the club, perhaps.
Yeah, it was.
Those 2 games. You know what? It's funny because a lot of games this season, when we've been previewing, we say this is going to be like a real test, this one. But I think when these 2 games came along, I thought, these are hard grounds to go to. We'd just been on quite a good run. And it was like, right, now let's see where this team is. And I think that if I remember, I don't think we played that great in either game, despite taking the lead in both. And I think it was just a real sense of disappointment that, like you said, we were playing teams that were coming off the back of some real bad form. Like they were getting slaughtered in the press. There's that famous photo of now you can see it like Everton's 12 games, lost, draw, and then a win, and it's just the win against us at Goodison. I think with these games, I think it might be maybe slightly a quality thing, but I just think psychologically, I think that there's just some barrier that the players feel this is going to be a really hard game, and I think it's more of a mental thing going to those places at that time, which might be due to the age of the players, perhaps. But if you want to progress and you want to climb the table and finish in the top places, you've got to get results at these types of places, and to not even pick up a point from both games, to get 0 points out of 6, that was really disappointing.
And I think it's like what you said. It was, people were putting it up as like, this is a game, not just to see where we're at, but again, these are 2 teams that people had put us above us at the start of the season. We get points against Man United, that's it's a 6 point already. Do you know what I mean? We know they're going to be in and about it towards the end of the season and around where we want to be. So this is 3 points we can get on them. And it was a bit of a kick in the teeth, especially when they hadn't played great. It was like,
you know what? I can't remember with the United game. I'd need to look. But did he play El Neni in midfield with Partey in that game?
Yes,
because he did. Because he played in there, didn't he, the year before when there was no fans?
Yeah.
And I think
because it was the first game he dropped Lokonga because the Jackal wasn't quite back yet.
Yeah, and I think El Nene obviously didn't have the type of game that he had there the previous season.
No, he didn't.
And maybe that was perhaps a bit of an error. Perhaps it's easy with hindsight, but
yeah,
I remember him doing that, Arteta, and thinking.
I think you've looked back. I think that was actually one of the comments you made on the show afterwards. Thinking back on it, was I think he's looked at the game where El Neni played last season. Has played so well, and he's tried to bring him in this game. It just hasn't worked. And I think, funny enough, that was the last game El Neni played before he came on his really good run at the end of the season as well. True professional. So we had the Southampton game. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, the biggest story of the season for Arsenal so far, doesn't come back after being allowed to go and pick up his sick mum from France. Comes back late, missing COVID protocol. He's dropped for the Southampton game. Arsenal go on to win that 3-0, and it actually ends up being the last game that Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang goes on to play for Arsenal. Most would have thought at the time it was an absolute nightmare, but then they did go on to win a further 5 games, scoring 14 goals in those games. But first of all, the game against Southampton, the game where he came back late, the probably one of our most pivotal points of the season, Steve. Aubameyang dropped at that point. Do you feel like it was fair for Aubameyang to be dropped for that game? Not forgetting about everything else, but do you feel like it was fair for Aubameyang to be dropped for that Southampton game?
For that one game, yeah, I do think because of all the furore that was going around at the time. I think even if Arteta and Aubameyang was on the best friends and on the best of terms, then I still think he would have pulled him to one side and said, "Here, look, Pierre, all this going on, mate. I'm going to pull you out this one." And he did, and we went on to beat Southampton 3-0. All right, it's Southampton at the end of the day, but you still have to beat what's in front of you. And for that one particular time, I think he did it right. Obviously, he's not his mate, and they don't get on, so it obviously didn't work. It wasn't done like that. It was obviously done in a totally different way, and I'm sure at the end, Aubameyang wasn't too pleased about it. But not much more to add than the fact that it was the right decision.
Yeah. Jerome, Arsenal after that, I mean, it probably left fans wondering where they were going to get their goals from, but they went on to beat Southampton 3-0, West Ham 2-0 at home, Leeds 4-1 away from home, Norwich 5-0 away from home before the new year. What was your thoughts at that point once the goals were going in and Aubameyang wasn't playing?
Well, to be honest, this season when Aubameyang played, he wasn't great, and so I didn't think that we would miss him because he wasn't playing well at all for like quite a long period of time. The concern was that we'd only be left with Lacazette and Nketiah, and Nketiah had hardly got a look in at all. Balogun obviously wasn't ready, and he was going to be shipped out on loan. So even though we beat those teams and scored a lot of goals, Leeds had a proper makeshift team out. They were hit by COVID injuries, suspensions. That 11 that day for Leeds was proper unrecognisable than their normal starting 11. If you look at that team that played us, obviously Norwich, they went down. The West Ham result was quite good. They had a player sent off as well though. So that was the concern really, was that we hadn't got another body in as a striker, and that further down the line, despite not having European football, Lacazette wasn't exactly prolific, and we were going to need to rely on Lacazette and Nketiah. Some of us spoke about perhaps trying Pepe up front, but I remember saying that he's never done it before, so I don't think he'll start doing it now. And that obviously didn't happen. And Martinelli might have played a game perhaps up front. So that was the concern, was that you can get away with it over a few games, but between then and the end of the season, there's a lot of football to be played, a lot of points to be won, and a lot of goals that are needing to be scored. And we needed someone else to help.
Yeah, definitely. Sandwiched in between that was a quarter-final win, which I feel like people have forgotten, against a Sunderland team, where Eddie Nketiah, Nicolas Pepe looked world class. An excellent game to enjoy. It does seem a long time away. But although people people will try and dig Arsenal out about their cup run in the FA Cup, I think they forget that Arsenal did get to a semi-final of a Carabao Cup and lost to the eventual winners. So, like, I think credit is needed there. Like, you can't dismiss the cup. Like, credit has to be given for getting to a semi-final of the EFL Cup. Like, and we lost to Liverpool, and that's nothing to sort of lose sleep over. Then it came the January transfer window. Aubameyang, it was clear by then, wasn't coming back into the team. As Arsenal fans, you must have thought that Arsenal were going to bring in someone in the January transfer window at that point. Steve, what was your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you know my thoughts, mate. I've said it many a time. I must admit, we did a show, and I was shocked. We had a couple of people saying that we don't need someone, and it just blew me away. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that we'd let Aubameyang go. I think I said on the show that he will come back to haunt us, and he has, because he's prolific for Barcelona. People said he was finished. I knew he weren't finished. That's why I was, kept saying about trying to, do it differently, sit him down, because I think if you're going to get rid of him, you're making the wrong decision. But it turned out after a little while after that, he just couldn't stand Arteta, and he wanted to leave. So there was nothing he could have done anyway. I'm just baffled by it. I'm still baffled by it. I'm annoyed by it. I'm upset by it. It was the most craziest decision of this season, not to bring in two people in the transfer window. And it's cost us. And I genuinely believe that it's cost us Champions League football. And I don't think that anybody will say to me any differently that will make me change my mind on that. I think it's plain. I think it's clear that if we had brought a couple of players in, we would have won one of those games where we lost against Brighton, Crystal Palace, and who was the other one that we should have beat? Southampton. And I'm sure we would have got something up at Newcastle. So as I'm speaking now, I'm boiling inside, and I want to do a few four-letter obscenities, but I won't. I said last week, thank you to the board, and again, we knew, mate. We knew. We said even before Aubameyang left. One of the things that we spoke about a lot was that what if Saka and all of them Emil Smith-Rowe stopped scoring, or they couldn't find the net, because if they never scored, where would the goals come from? Now we're sitting here, we can see this. I'm sure Arteta could see that, but the dozy American twats, right, who are supposed to be running this club, couldn't see shit, right? And they've cost us Champions League football. We knew that Lacazette would lose form. We spoke about it. We knew Saka and Smith-Rowe couldn't go the whole season scoring goals every week, and it got to that point where they stopped.
I think Smith Rowe stopped not long after that. To be fair, I think he had an injury, didn't he? And he didn't really come back from his injury. Not properly.
No. But even if he was there, there was still that possibility. Xhaka was there. And I mean, and he whatever you say, even if he got the odd one or two here and there, he's not going to score goals every week. So and it's just Ryan we're talking about Pepe, Lacazette. I just knew he wasn't going to last the whole season, and I think we was just praying that we was going to struggle through, and in the end we couldn't. And look, not getting someone in January has cost us a Champions League. Could Arteta have dealt with it differently? Would have if Arteta would have said something else to Aubameyang? Could he have turned him round? Could he have got him to stay? I don't know. I can't. I'm not there. I don't know. We know what he did. We know what he done wrong. I'd love to know. I'd love to know the full story, and just so I can sort of be clear in my head that they did do the right decision with Aubameyang. But at the end of the day, not getting no goal scorers in, it's still baffling me as I'm speaking even now, as cost us. And it's cost us Champions League football, even if we, at the moment, we're sitting fifth, and that's probably where we should be. But that still don't take away the fact that we was 3 points away from getting Champions League football.
Jerome, I think the biggest thing that there were people that saying Abba can go, there were people that saying they wanted Abba to stay. I think the general consensus was if you're gonna get rid of Aubameyang, surely you've got to bring someone in, and they did. Yeah. Was that in your forefront of your mind, or was there other positions you thought were more important?
That was obviously the standout. Like I said, I think centre midfield was a big one as well. But what they did in January is they took a gamble, they took a risk, and looking at all the evidence before you, they took a gamble on something that had I think, easy to say now, but had a big chance of failing because of the fact that your other strikers don't score a lot of goals. And the people that are scoring goals are young, so there's probably a chance that they're not going to keep up that rate of goal scoring, and that's what it turned out. Maybe we don't know exactly what's gone on, but maybe would have a more senior manager been more adamant that we have to get someone in. Maybe he might have been adamant, Arteta, that he needed someone, but. Maybe someone with a bit more, I don't know, stature in the game, more experience, might have stood firm, perhaps. But looking back, that is a major mistake. Not replacing Aubameyang.
Why I don't think that would matter in stature wise is because I don't think Arsenal would bring in a manager who would demand that sort of thing, like a Conte, an Allegri, a Mourinho. They would demand that you brought someone in, and if you didn't, it's gonna be fire until you sack me. Yeah, they would demand that. Certain managers won't. Okay, can I have that? No. Okay, I'll see what. Can I have this? No. Okay, we need this. Don't get it. Okay, I'll see what I can do. But let's just remember, I did say here, so we're gonna have to be Captain Hindsight. It's gonna have to be. We're gonna have to look back and go, look, I did say here. Now do you trust me? This is where I think these owners are. They think they know a little bit better because the way they do things over there, and then it's got to be actually, I did actually tell you, and this is where it went wrong.
They had to get someone in, even if it's just on loan. If you get anyone in on loan, no one's gonna turn around and say that getting someone in on loan, no matter who they are, is worse than not getting anyone in. You had to get a body in. You had to get someone.
Yeah. I'm sure Arteta knew. I'm sure he knew. He tried to get Melo as well. He tried to get Melo.
The Arthur Melo deal that we all know it was there. We all knew that was there, and it's since come out, and 6 million was the issue. Look at the mob down the road. The two players that they brought in were the two players that were the difference. The two players, in fact, you know the worst thing, the two players that they brought in, were the two players that scored the 2 goals, which eventually cemented them getting into the Champions League spot against Norwich. Their first goal they scored was Bernardeschi and Kulusevski, and it was set up between each other. And one went on to score a hat-trick in that game as well. Like it, and we were after Kulusevski. That's the worst thing. We were speaking with Juventus about Kulusevski in December, in November. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
That's probably down to money as well. That probably come down to money as well.
Of course it did, and it was a loan. It was a look what Tottenham did, a loan option to buy.
Daniel Levy's, Conte's got to say, look, I need a couple of players in the January transfer window. Get me these couple of players, and we've got more chance of getting into the Champions League. Exactly the same situation as what Arsenal were in, but our owners turned around and just said no.
2-1 loss to Man City, which many actually applauded in being a great test of character, and only an inexperience of Gabriel in getting sent off with 2 bookable offences in a short space of time was potentially the difference in that game, with a Rodri last-minute goal. But then the 0-0 draw, which I nearly said a loss to Burnley at home. That, for me, along with the Southampton game, were the 2 games where not only do you need a striker in there, the player that might bring it out of nowhere, but for me, the 2 games which were there for the taking, and we didn't. Yes, we can look at the Brighton game, but I will pull you up stats and facts and score lines of the last 5 times we played Brighton. Throughout any manager, it's a struggle. Same with Crystal Palace. But Burnley and Southampton are bread and butter. Burnley and Southampton, we win all day long every season. We don't lose to those teams. And Brighton and Crystal Palace, they're the draws. They're the disappointing draws, or the 2-1 last-minute victory. They're those games. You don't win those games easily because they're solid teams. They're good. But these teams here, Burnley 0-0, that's an extra 2 points. And Southampton, although we were beat by them, they were trash. They're 2 shots on goal, 1 shot on target. Absolutely disgracefully embarrassing game that was. It was horrible. Worse than the other 2 as well for me. It was horrible. And those have been the games where it's been a difference in could have got a Weghorst or look at Burnley when it got like a Comey or a Watford. They've got Emmanuel Dennis.
Anything.
What got them at the start of the season? But Arsenal don't buy those sorts of players. Arsenal don't buy an Emmanuel Dennis who has scored 15 goals in the Premier League or whatever, or a Comey who scored 10 goals at a team that couldn't score a goal, couldn't score 10 goals themselves. That's the crazy thing. These are 2 players that are at teams which don't score goals, which got relegated, and Arsenal won't take a punt on that sort of player. That's the sort of player I should have gone in and gotten on loan in January, and those players were about. Don't tell me they weren't. Aston Villa got Philip Coutinho. Like, there's players about that could have gone in and come in for Arsenal in a position and got us 1 or 2 goals towards the end of the season, which would have made a massive difference. But then, as I said, Aubameyang was sold, so there was no going back. But wins against Wolves, Brentford, Wolves again, Watford and Leicester, all back-to-back, maybe showed that Arsenal have something that could take them through to the end of the season. Standout for me were the 2 Wolves games. Not only showed that Arsenal could sort of, 1, come back from 1-0 down, showing tested character, but 2, win against a team which were solid, hardly conceded any goals, and just one of them teams that just frustrate you and have frustrated over the past few seasons. At that point there, Steve, although we had our issues with the fact that there was no signings in the January transfer window, it felt there that Champions League was actually in our grasp. Fourth in the league.
Yeah.
6 points ahead. Oh no, 4 points ahead, or 3 points ahead. Sorry. That right there, it felt like it was within touching distance.
Yeah, I mean, we all started to get excited then, didn't we? We was looking behind us, and at the time we see Manchester United, and we just thought, they're not gonna go above us.
Mm-hmm.
And we looked at Spurs, and they was probably the only worry. We knew we had them to come, but again, our boys showed character. We're talking about the Burnley game; it was awful. But again, it's been like a stop-start season where we've played bad, done good, played bad, done good. It's gone like 3 or 4 games. We have these spells. Obviously, there was the 10, where we went 10 games and played excellently well. But playing against Wolves, home, away, beating them, very hostile crowd. Moaning, weren't they? Because we were celebrating, the players were celebrating on the pitch. It just felt good. We had Peter Drury singing, that famous commentary of the season, which I'll, probably play back forever. The Emirates was singing and prancing and dancing, and that was the mood that we was in, and we looked at 4th place, and we did look, and it wasn't no one above us. We looked at Chelsea, and we felt, well, we're not going to replace them, although later in the season we was up their backsides as well. But you did think. But one thing there was, Kieran. I mean, I don't know about you used to, but there was still that worry about if the goals stopped and if the other two didn't stop. If they stopped scoring goals, it was always that. You had that prey that. For Arsenal to do what they were carried on doing, we were still relying on players like Martinelli, who was now coming into form. Smith Rowe was going off a bit of form, but Martinelli had come in and taken over from him. So from sort of praying that Smith Rowe would be scoring every week or regularly, we was now saying about Martinelli scoring regularly, and Saka started to drop with his goal scoring for some reason. I don't know why, but not in his form overall. But and then we had the form of Odegaard was coming to the fore, and it was exciting. And I thought that yes, if we could keep them fit, but. There was always that worry that January would come back to haunt us.
Yep, it definitely did. Jerome, at this point there, it's where the magic 3 games turned up. Well, not magic. Yeah. 3 games where at the start of it, you're looking at this run, and if you're being realistic, you're probably thinking it's going to be tough. We could get, let's say, 7 points out of this. 7 points would be good if we come out of this. Arsenal end up coming out with none. A 3-0 loss to Crystal Palace, a 2-1 loss to Brighton, where, let's be honest, that one really was a fluke, like a 40-yard deflected shot from Odegaard. It was just hit and hope. And then a 1-0 loss to a Southampton team who had 2 shots on goal and 1 shot on target. Absolutely devastating at that point, and probably felt like we'd absolutely thrown it away.
Yeah, definitely. I think leading up to those games, although there was, I think, a very good feel-good fact, and we were winning games. We were winning games by the finest of margins. Both those Wolves games easily could have lost both of those. One of them we played the end with 10 men, really hanging on to a 1-0 win, and obviously Pepe came on, scored the equaliser, and then Lacazette scored at the end, maybe both in the last 10, 15 minutes or something.
3-2 against Watford, very tight.
All those games we were winning, we were
1-0
scraping through, hanging on, tense, horrible to watch. And that was when the sort of phrase come in saying 17 cup finals, 16 cup finals, which a cup final is a stressful, pressurised game, and calling
we should have to play 17.
Yeah, but putting pressure on a young squad, telling them that you've got 17 cup finals left, is probably not the best idea. And maybe we shouldn't have looked at it like that. But But yeah, those 3 games, the Palace game, that's when obviously Partey got injured midway through. We got battered by Palace. Again, like I said on one of the previous pods, very hostile ground. They were all over us like a rash. Palace, we didn't get going at all.
And the players' form in that game and the way they went at it is only going to get the crowd going more. Like if you want to silence the Crystal Palace crowd, you put an early goal against them. You put them on the back foot. But we were on the back foot, and that G'd them right up under the lights. They were pumped, and they got the victory for it.
Yeah, we couldn't handle it. We just couldn't handle their intensity, closing us down. We couldn't play through the pressure they were putting on us, and that was the beginning really of that 3-game run. And Brighton at home, terrible, and Southampton away. And Southampton at the time were rubbish. Southampton.
Yeah. I think they didn't get much better towards the end of the season either. They didn't get any better.
It's probably one of the worst Southampton teams in about 10 years. The team that we lost to, but that is what happens when you lose a few first choice players. This squad, unfortunately, hasn't got the minerals to handle different games, and that 3-game period was terrible.
Yeah, Steve, off those games, what was the worst for you?
I mean, the one where, probably the only time this season where we could say Arteta made a right arse up of the team selection playing Xhaka at, left back. I think he was playing Odegaard in the midfield, wasn't he?
Yeah.
With Smith Rowe. It just didn't work.
I think in that game, Martinelli ended up moving to wing back as well. Yeah.
He went back, and the second half,
it was all over the place.
It was all over the place, mate. Yeah. It was just a terrible bad day at the office. I mean, for me, that was the worst. And again, it was all around that time where the injuries started to hit. And players started to lose form. Smith Rowe had gone by then. His form was
full season, isn't it?
Yeah. And then not that I'm having a go at Smith Rowe. I think he's progressed fantastically this season. He's got himself in the England squad, so I'm not having a go at him. He's just played so much football. It got to that point where he was absolutely, I think, like we've said time and time again, he was knackered. And this was the time in the season where it started to really show. Lacazette, who started to play, was playing very well, over a period of time. All of a sudden, the wheels came off, and we were talking about he had to be changed. And
even Martin, there's an argument for Martinelli as well, because his first proper full season, although he started later on in the season, he hasn't had this run of games.
No,
and if you run at 100 miles an hour like he does, it's going to catch up.
It will catch up, and it did catch up, and it caught up with probably all the younger players, bar one, and I don't blame them. And I'm not blaming them. I'm not blaming them at all. I'm blaming the fact that we just didn't have the squad to come on and help them out. You was bringing on if. Saka couldn't rest, so you had to play him again. You looked at who could replace Saka. There was no one there. Pepe was just not doing it. He had a good African nations. We thought he was going to come in, maybe come back off that form and maybe give Saka a break. That never transpired. So we had to just keep playing Martinelli, Saka, and combined with the injuries to Tierney, combined it to the injuries of Partey, it totally messed up our system altogether. And although you'll probably talk about the games after that in a minute, it was, for me, I started to look then now, where you were saying a little while ago, where you was thinking about, was that the time that Champions League football that you was looking at, we had a chance, that was the time where I'm thinking, I don't think our players are going to get their form back, and I think we're in trouble. And
I think after that Southampton game, about 99.9% of the Arsenal fan base is probably not completely written it off, but we're like getting used to the Europa League sound music anthem, because to look at that, the next 3 games, you was thinking, okay, this is damage limitation here.
Yeah.
How are we going to come off the back of that? Then go into Chelsea, Man United, and West Ham, and then Leeds, who are in a relegation battle, and try and get points out of that. It was just clinch, hope, hitting hope. Go on, Jerome. What was your thoughts when we had the Chelsea, Man United, West Ham, and Leeds games coming up?
Mate, I was worrying we'd fall out of Europe altogether. I thought.
Oh, yeah, we were, weren't we? There was certainly.
I thought if we can't get a point out of these teams, and now we've got to play West Ham away, who are very decent. Obviously, United and Chelsea away. You thought Chelsea away. That's definitely a game we're losing. Like you thought, not even point discussing that. You just take that as a loss.
Yeah.
That was. I thought we were gonna. I was looking who's in 8th, who's in 7th. Like I was thinking, I just don't want to get in that that Conference League thing. That's what I was most worried about at that point, was qualifying for that.
Although we were awful, dog against Crystal Palace, Brighton, and Southampton, games against the wins against Chelsea, Man United, West Ham, those were it put us back in the race, put us back in the position. And look, we didn't get there in the end yet, but I think as fans, we want to be able to have these conversations towards the end of the season, wherever they are, whether it's getting into the top 4, whether it's going for the league, whether it's winning an FA Cup, whether it's going for a Champions League final. We want to be in the conversations. We don't want to, with 5 games to go, 10 games to go, be like, oh, that's our season done, which it has been for a fair few teams. We moan that we're not winning things and we're not doing that, but I want to be there and thereabouts, and be like, okay, final game of the season, are we in it? Do you know what I mean? This is what we want. Yeah. Yes, we want to win stuff, but in between those winning, this is what you want. You want to be able to be in the conversation at the end of the season, whether it's top 4, or whether it's winning the cup. And that's all I ask for as a fan. But then came Tottenham, Newcastle, and it was over. It wasn't over after the Tottenham game, but then the Newcastle game, it came around. Arsenal didn't turn up in a very hostile atmosphere at St James's Park, which was to be expected because they're probably the most informed team of the second half of the year. Which is the reason why Eddie Howe's been nominated for Manager of the Season. Blew me away, considering Mikel Arteta got 4 Manager of the Months and wasn't even in the nomination. But it is what it is. But Steve, that was the end of it. And sitting there waiting for. I don't think anyone was sitting there waiting for Norwich to do Arsenal a favour and get that victory against Tottenham, were they?
Well, I was a bit. I was a little bit. I did that. I had that little bit of hope, but that didn't last long. But when it comes to the Norwich game, I was just wanted to see a good performance and to take us into the next season after what I thought was, at the end of the day, a pretty good season. For us, when if you put everything together and the way our team progressed and the way our young players progressed, but it was over. The Newcastle game was an absolute disgrace. I don't know what happened there. It's probably the only time I could really sort of, pull our players to one side and have a go at them and said, what was you doing? Didn't you want to win the game? But no, I mean, we went into the Norwich game the Everton game, and we ended up winning it. And we left off on a high, which was probably all that we could hope for. But overall, just I'm quite happy with the season, the way it panned out. At the beginning of it, I was literally thought if we just got into Europe in the Conference League, I would have been over the moon. So to finish 2 places higher and finish in 5th place, you've got to be happy with that. I'm sure there's some Arsenal fans that are not, but then again, some Arsenal fans are never happy. They just doom and gloom, and they're probably like that in real life as well. But I'm looking forward to next season, mate. And but that Newcastle game was bad. It was rough.
Yeah, it was rough. Jerome, what would you overriding fault of the season gone? Some would say it was a failure. Some would say it's progression. Some would say it's progression with a tinge of failure. How would you put it?
This season is so hard to sum up and just define it as one certain thing. There's been so much action, and it's one of the good things to come out of it is that sometimes we have seasons and the last few weeks there's just like nothing to play for. But at least with this one, we were sort of in it until the end. We had something to play for right up until the last game, pretty much. I think it's clear there has been progression. The feel good factor, which I've mentioned, is definitely back. The relationship's been mended between, I think, the players and the fans, which is great. But I still think there's a lot of work to do. I'd call it. Like, I can't lie. I didn't think we'd finish 5th at the beginning of the season. So we've gone above my expectations, but there's still some obvious areas to improve. So, as I say, it's hard to really say. I wouldn't really call it a failure, and I wouldn't really call it a success. I'd call it neither.
So, what mark out of 10 would you give it?
Probably a 6.
Okay.
Probably a 6 out of 10. The thing is that what people have got to remember is we are in such a competitive league that the first 2, places 1 and 2, they're not even under consideration. Like, forget it.
It's crazy.
Forget it. And even 3rd is like, that's super tough. So our window of where we're aiming for is quite small. Yeah. Really. Which it's a bit of a shame, really, because I remember the days when we were fighting for the championship and rightly feeling that we were in with a chance, and unfortunately, due to a couple of teams just getting an influx of money out of nowhere, and one team spending very well and having a world-class manager in Liverpool, they're just so far ahead of us, and it's we're in the same league, but we're in a different league to those 2 teams.
Which is why it's so important Arsenal spend well this summer, not just big, but well and smart. Because otherwise, this could be a summer where we could end up another 10 years behind if we don't make the right investment.
Yeah, it's massive. I think we say every summer, we always say this summer's big, but this seems particularly big
because I think the last summer was so good. I think last summer's was good. The January window, I think, was poor. There's no thinking about it. It was poor,
non-existent.
But I think the foundations that we laid for the summer transfer window to then go onto this window and not do anything after January's disappointment would be criminal.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say one thing is that with Arteta, I think he's very fortunate. I don't know. He's basically been allowed to build a whole new squad. Been given the time, to do that. I don't know many other clubs where a manager goes in and just rips up the whole playing staff and basically is allowed to start from scratch and basically build their own 25-man squad. And that's basically what Arteta is being allowed to do here. So I think it's quite a rare situation that he's in. But that is why I guess you call it a project, because it's a long-term thing, and he can't. It's it's a very unique situation. I think
they got in Unai Emery. They had Arsene Wenger. They got in Unai Emery, and they just weren't feeling the way that maybe not necessarily like the way we were doing things on the pitch, but more so I think the type of players that he was looking to bring in. If you look at some of the signings, there was Wilfried Zaha, but there was also the likes of Steven Nzonzi and players that don't really have any longevity career-wise, and players that you'll be looking to try and get rid of on the books on high wages. So if you've been on part of those two so-called projects before, then getting a manager and one, not back him, and two, not go completely the other way in probably going for a more youthful team. I think they have to give him time, because it would be like, if you don't give him time now, it's two steps forward, one step back. You're creating even more of a mess. So now it's like a spring clean. If they was to walk away from it now, the next manager might come in and be like, nah, this ain't going to work. They have to. They've got no option. They have to back him. They have to keep him there, because if they don't, it's going to cost double, treble the amount to change it, to fix it. Steve, before we get on to the player of the season, what's your overriding summary of the season?
I think it's been, looking for an overall summary, I think it's been a good season. I think it's a season where players have progressed and not digressed. It's been a season where, like Jerome said, they've got a lot further than I thought they would. Finishing fifth, I thought they'd struggle to get in the Europa League and into the conference, and they've ended up getting fifth. I think the manager, I think he's improved through the season. I've liked what I see. I can see a style where before at the beginning of the season, I was still trying to find that style. But now, I look at Tottenham and I look at Man United, right? And I don't see a style. I don't know what they do. I watch them on the pitch, and if you changed their tops, I wouldn't know who they were. I wouldn't have a clue what they're doing or what team they would be. But with Arsenal, right, I can see a pattern. I can see an identity appearing. I know if it's Arsenal are playing or not. Man United and even Tottenham, I don't see that. I just think they play off the cuff and they play anyhow. And I think Man United probably got lucky to where they've finished. I think even Man United supporters will tell you that, they're lucky they ain't finished 10th or 11th. And Tottenham, if it wasn't for Arsenal, just had kids sort of, losing confidence towards the end of the season, then they wouldn't be sitting in fourth place.
And they've got Kane and Son.
And they've got Kane and Son.
Two world-class strikers.
Yeah. So overall, I think it's been a good season. I would say it's been a successful season. Any season where you progress, I would say it's a success. So for me, we had a good cup run in the League Cup. And as I say, I think the most important thing for Arsenal at the moment is that we can see our players getting better. And that's, and that's all you can ask for at the moment. So if you can improve and get into Europe and you can finish fifth, and for me, if I was to mark them out of 10, if they'd got in the Champions League, we'd be giving them 10 to that tonight, because we would say Arteta's just done that incredible and the players have done unbelievable, and we finished fourth. So for me, I'd give him a high 7, touching an 8 for the season, because of just where I thought they'd be at the beginning of the season and the way our players have, progressed, and now I can start going into the next season with excitement, knowing that we've got some incredible young players, and our manager is the person who's brought them on. So hopefully with a couple of, good, seasoned professionals, maybe a Jesus and maybe a Tillemans coming in the summer, I'm really excited. So for me, I'd give him an 8 for the season. I'm very pleased.
All right, so Steve gives him an 8. All right, let's get on to the player of the season. Let's start with you, Jerome. Jerome, who do you have down as your player of the season?
Well, I think it's very hard to look past Saka, to be honest. I think there's a lot of players that have had good spells throughout the season. Ramsdale, like you mentioned at the beginning.
Honourable mentions.
Yeah, Tomiyasu was fantastic when he played, but obviously was injured for large parts. Partey had a spell where he looked just top draw. Smith Rowe went through a period where he couldn't stop scoring when he was playing instead of Martinelli. But I think for his consistency and constant threat, I can't really give it to him apart from Saka. The amount of games he's played, the minutes it's been in his legs, considering the summer he had as well, disappointment of what happened, missing the penalty in the final, and just sort of shaking it off like nothing happened is amazing. And they got to tie him down to another long-term contract, because at 20 years of age, he's going to significantly improve from here as well. So yeah, player of the season, goals, assists. He's the player that you want the ball to be given to, basically, because you think he's going to create something for you. There hasn't been too many games when he's been like proper quiet, or he's drifted properly out of a game. Like, even if he's not having the best of games, he'll do something in a game that can create a chance. Or you've always got the hope with him when he's on the pitch that something could happen. And yeah, I'd go for Saka.
All right, so Jerome's gone for Saka is his player of the season. Saka, 38 games played, every single game for Arsenal in the Premier League this season, only starting on the bench twice, scoring 11 goals, creating 7 of them. So 18 goal contributions in 38 games. It's not bad for the 20-year-old. Steve, who have you got as your player of the season?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's very hard to argue against Saka, is it? Especially when you whack those stats up just before I start to give my spiel. So now
I'm going to do that for everyone. Don't worry about that. That's part of my spiel.
But yeah, I think Saka's been amazing. He scored 11 goals. He could probably, he could score more than that. If we can sort of say something a bit, negative against him, but he's been fantastic. He's been incredible. He's the guy that, especially at the beginning of the season, that we looked to. He tired, towards the end, which they all did, and the fact that he just kept going and going and going and going was, with unbelievable sort of credit to him. But I'm not going for him because
you gave all of that and then said, "But I knew that was coming." I knew that was coming.
It has to be Martin Odegaard. This guy for me is just beautiful. The guy, he gets overlooked a lot. I don't think people outside of Arsenal realise what this guy is and what he does on a football pitch. He does everything. Yes, Saka scores goals and assists, but this guy's work rate, this guy's touch, this guy's ability on a football he's to me the closest thing to Bergkamp and Ozil, and maybe I don't think he'd ever surpass Bergkamp, but he could certainly catch up Ozil, you know, and that is probably one of the biggest accolades I can give to him. He's just been amazing, Kieran. He's taken over that captain armband. You know, Arteta's give him it, and it feels like he is the Arsenal captain. I was saying he goes round the players. He's talking to them when they get booked or they do a rough tackle. He's going over to them and he's having a word in their ear. He's just, for me, he's becoming Mr. Arsenal of the squad that we've got at the moment. He does an incredible amount of work, and he's just getting better and better and better and better. And it's very argue against Saka, but for me, on a personal sort of just point of view, just because I love what he does on a football pitch, I'm going for Martin Odegaard.
All right, Martin Odegaard, 40 games in all competitions, 7 goals, 5 assists in the Premier League, 36 games, 7 goals, 4 assists. So 11 goal contributions in 36 games for the central midfielder. Both have been excellent this season. I agree. I do think Martin Odegaard gets overlooked sometimes. I think over the season, for me, it's a tough one. It's a tough one. I think. Do you know what? Yeah, I see so many similarities with Saka and Sterling when Sterling was at Liverpool. Sterling was so good when he first came into Liverpool before he went City that the Liverpool fan base were expecting so much more from him that by, I think, the final season he was there, he was starting to get pelters rather than encouragement. Yeah, and I worry about that with Saka because I do hear it where Saka's quiet in a game when I hear people say things like, oh, Saka's gone missing again or he's not turned up. Now, that's not what you say. You don't say Saka's not turned up for a player who's 20, who's played 3 seasons back-to-back, who has contributed to 20-plus goals each season or whatever, and ain't missed a game. That's not how you talk about someone who's done that for your team. You do it. You say it a different way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
He's still young, and I do worry that we're going to get on to Saka too much and expect too much from him too early. And we're talking because you look at his stats there. That's a 1 in 2 goal contribution for a 20-year-old in his second full season at Arsenal, like in the Premier League. Like his first season was in and out. Mkhitaryan was playing a lot, but this is his second full season, and that's what I worry about Saka. I think, and I've been umming and ahhing over the last few days. It's so tough, but I think I would give it to Saka just because I think Mo's been brilliant. Sorry, Martin Odegaard. I call him Martin. I think Martin Odegaard's been brilliant. I'd love to watch him play. I think I said at the season he's the midfield Dennis Bergkamp. He glides across the pitch. His vision is excellent. I'm excited to see what he can do because of what I've read about what Arteta has said about him. And in a couple of seasons' times, you're going to see the things that we're working on. I'm like, what? What is it? Like, because I think he could score 10 goals in a season. I think he could get 10 assists. I think he could be one of the best players in the Premier League. I think his ceiling is higher than Saka's. I think his ceiling is higher than most of the players in the Arsenal team. I think I'll just give it to Saka this season. But I think Mo's been brilliant. And I could even be cheeky and give Saka a young player and Mo player of the year. But no, I'm going to give Saka, for me, I'm going to give him player of the year. Steve, young player of the year. We've got to be quick. I want it done by past. We've got 6 minutes.
Right, young player of the year. I mean, they're all young, aren't they?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's well hard.
Young player of the year. It's got to be out of. I mean, I'll have to give it to Saka. You know, if there's anything, he's probably him or Martinelli. You know, if I'm going to give Odegaard player of the year, yeah, I'll be quick. I mean, you've already said the reasons why Saka should be player of the year. So I'll just echo those reasons for him being young player of the year.
Yeah, all right, cool. Jerome, young player.
I don't know how I can give Saka player at 20 and not give him the young player as well.
Okay, you're giving a double whammy. Saka.
Yeah, cool.
All right, and here's the one. Most improved. This is the one that when you're playing football, no, it's clubman. No one wants clubman. Most improved you can kind of accept, but no one wants clubman.
Yeah.
Who are you giving most improved, Steve?
This is tough. I mean, I had thought about this one before we come on tonight, and I've come to the conclusion it is out of 2.
I know I've got 2, and I think I've got the same 2.
But I think someone who's just, for me, has been all through the season, just been reliable, steady, and for me hasn't let Arsenal down many times. And I think Arteta's come in, and I never thought he was a bad player anyway, but I think he's taken him to different heights. And I think this season we've seen a different player altogether, as far as getting forward goes, playing the ball forward goes, and literally being in that midfield area and having to be there and performing regularly. And for me, it's got to be Granit Xhaka.
All right. Jerome, who have you got as your most improved?
Yeah, he didn't play a lot of games, but the fact that there's even a conversation about new contracts, I'm going to give it to Eddie Nketiah.
Okay.
I think that before he played the game against Chelsea, no one probably cared if he sort of maybe stayed or went. There probably wasn't a clamour to sign a new contract, but now it's he scored a few goals. His all-round game seems to have improved a bit in terms of his hold-up play, and yeah, I think he's improved the most from sort of the beginning of the season when he wasn't playing until now. So I'll give it to Eddie.
All right. So for me, most improved. There's a few that we can talk about. As I want to get us done in 2 minutes, I need to hurry up. So Cedric, because this little stiff man who you wouldn't in general want anywhere near your team, has come in this season, has played 21 Premier League games.
He's not let us down at all, is he?
And yes, he has his moments, but like he's played 21 games, and I didn't really want him playing any, if I was honest. I don't mind him coming in for 2 or 3 as a backup, but that's what you want as backup. He's played 21. So that's my honourable mention. My other honourable mention has to be Thomas Partey. Although he's been injured, he's had his injury problems, he has also featured in 24 Premier League games, which is more than I think most people actually realise.
Yeah, that's right. Don't realise.
And last season, he was pretty awful. And this season, he was a massive miss. Miss. We missed him when he went to AFCON. And when he came back, when he got injured, we missed him again. And I think he was one of the reasons why we couldn't really get it over the line in the league. Yes, we still would have needed to score goals, but I guarantee we won't be shipping in 2s against Newcastle that easily, 1 against Southampton, 1 against Brighton so easily. So I think that's my honourable mention there. But yeah, my one also goes to Granit Xhaka. I think he's a player that people have their opinions on. Some won't change it, but I think he's had He's had since Mikel Arteta's come in. He's changed his game. Yes, he has his faults. Yes, he's a hothead. He does stupid things when you don't need him to do stupid things, but he's not going to change. But what he has done this season, he's been a lot more consistent. He's added a couple of goals to his game, important goals as well, and he's added like just in general range of passing has been a lot more consistent because he's always had the range of passing, but it's sometimes it was on and off. This season, it's been a lot more consistent. He's never going to be the most mobile. He ain't going to change that. He ain't going to speed up. But I feel like there is a place for him in the team, even though I still feel we need to add in an additional centre midfielder in the number 8 position that he was playing in this season. But I still feel like there's definitely a place in this team for Granit Xhaka. So he is my most improved player. All right. Thank you, everyone, for the end of season review. Sorry I kept you a little bit longer. Thank you for your input tonight, Steve.
Welcome, mate. Enjoyed it.
Good. And thank you for your input tonight, Jerome.
Of course, pleasure.
All right. Everyone who has joined us tonight, make sure you press that like and subscribe button. If you are watching on any of the other platforms, make sure you come over to KS1 TV. Just press the link in the comment section. If you're watching on Facebook, change the settings so we can see who you are and you're not just talking to an egg. Make sure you join the comment the chat next time as well. Press that like and subscribe, people. Press that share button if you're feeling generous. Peace out, people. Stay safe and wash your hands.